On a sunny day, outside a huge house with shiny marble stairs and big windows that sparkled in the light, an old woman sat shaking on the stone walkway. Her voice was weak and broken as she cried and begged, with tears running down her aged face. Her thin gray hair was falling to the ground in pieces. Next to her stood a younger woman wearing fancy clothes. She was laughing in a mean way, holding scissors that flashed in the sunlight as she kept cutting off the old woman's hair. Nobody knew that inside that big house lived a very rich man. He was someone many people looked up to and respected. But right then, his heart was about to break in a way that no amount of money could ever repair. If you believe in being kind, caring for others, and giving people another chance, please take a second now to leave a comment, share this video, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. When you support us, you help us share more stories that lift people up and move their hearts. The old woman's name was Margaret Lwood. She was the mother of Leonard Lwood, a man who had become wealthy and powerful. Leonard had created a successful business in finance, and his picture often appeared in fancy magazines. He always wore expensive shoes and had a sure smile on his face. But Margaret had always lived a quiet and simple life. The people who lived near her knew her as someone with a good heart. She would give a cup of tea to people she didn't even know and would hug anyone who seemed sad or troubled. What made her most proud was her son. She had raised him by herself after her husband died when Leonard was just a little boy. Now that Margaret was older, she had become weak. She walked very slowly. Her hands shook when she held her walking stick, and her hair that used to be neat and styled had become thin and delicate. Margaret needed help and protection. Even though her son had plenty of money to take care of her completely, Leonard believed that his girlfriend, Vivian Hale, would treat his mother with kindness and respect when he wasn't home. Vivian had seemed like a classy woman with good manners and style. Leonard thought she was the kind of person who could stand next to him with pride. But that afternoon, behind the locked gates of their property, Vivian showed who she really was. Instead of being kind, her smile was full of meanness. Instead of helping Margaret, she made fun of how weak she was. "Your hair looks terrible," Vivian said in a nasty voice as she pushed Margaret down into a chair. The old woman begged quietly, pressing her trembling hands together, but Vivian just laughed and held the scissors even tighter. She cut and cut, one piece at a time, while Margaret cried and begged her to please stop. The front yard of the mansion felt huge and quiet except for the terrible sound of Margaret crying. The sun beat down without mercy, creating long dark shadows on the stone path. Each tear that rolled down Margaret's face caught the light, making her suffering even more clear to see. But Vivian just laughed louder and louder, enjoying the old woman's pain and helplessness. Right at that same time, Leonard was coming back from a work meeting much sooner than anyone expected. His shiny shoes made clicking sounds on the walkway as he rushed up toward the house, carrying a black briefcase. His mind was busy thinking about business deals and numbers. But then he heard something that made him stop. It was his mother's voice, soft, breaking apart, pleading. It was a sound he hadn't heard since he was a child, back when she cried for him late at night after his father had passed away. That memory hit him hard and his heart seemed to skip a beat. He stood still for just a moment, then ran forward, his eyes looking everywhere with fear. What he saw took his breath away. There was his mother, his pride, the woman who had protected him his whole life, sitting on the hard, cold ground with tears pouring down her cheeks. Her hair was scattered all around her like dead leaves in autumn, and standing over her was Vivian, laughing with cruel pleasure. For a moment, Leonard felt like everything around him had fallen apart. His chest felt tight, his legs almost gave out beneath him, but then anger rushed through his body like fire. He dropped his briefcase and it hit the stone ground with a loud crash that echoed everywhere. Vivian's laughter stopped suddenly when she noticed him standing there, but the harm had already been done. Margaret looked up at her son with shaking eyes and whispered his name like he was the only person who could save her. Leonard ran to her side, dropped to his knees next to her, and held her shaking hands in his. His voice cracked with both rage and sadness. In that single moment, he understood that all the money he owned meant absolutely nothing if he couldn't protect the woman who had given up everything for him. Vivian tried to make excuses. Her voice was full of reasons and explanations. But when Leonard looked at her, his stare made her go silent. He could see right through the charm she usually showed, through the perfect image she presented when other people were watching. What stood in front of him now was not someone he wanted as a partner. She was someone who had betrayed the most important part of his life, his heart and his mother. Without saying anything, he grabbed the scissors from her hand and threw them far away. Then he turned all his attention back to his mother. He wrapped his arms around her and held her close, whispering promises that she would never be left alone and unprotected again. The days after that were full of both sadness and recovery. Margaret was badly shaken by what had happened, but she felt better because of her son's constant love and attention. Leonard canceled all his business meetings, delayed his trips, and spent his days staying close to his mother. For the first time in many years, the powerful businessman wasn't seen in office buildings or expensive hotels. Instead, he was at home, making simple meals for his mother, gently brushing what was left of her hair, and telling her over and over that she was the most valuable thing in his life. The mansion that used to echo with Vivian's fake laughter and pretend warmth became a place of real love and healing. Vivian, however, disappeared from Leonard's life completely. Her betrayal left a mark that would never fully go away, but it also taught him an important lesson. Money might bring people close to you, but it also shows you who they really are when you test them with compassion and kindness. As days became weeks, Margaret's smile slowly came back. Neighbors saw her sitting in the garden again with her silver hair tied carefully with a ribbon and her eyes looking brighter than they had in a long time. She often held Leonard's hand as they walked together, telling him how proud she was of him. Not because of his money or his success in business, but because of the kind of man he had chosen to become. Leonard himself started to see life differently. He realized that the greatest thing he could ever build wasn't a business empire. It was something made of love, respect, and protection for the people who truly mattered in his life. The story of Margaret and Leonard teaches us that being cruel, even in small ways, creates wounds that money can never fix. But kindness, real, genuine kindness that comes from the heart, has the power to heal even the most broken spirits. And for Leonard, seeing his mother's tears became a moment that changed the direction of his entire life. If this story moved your heart, please like it, share it with others, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us bring more real emotional stories that remind people everywhere about the power of compassion. And before you leave, tell us in the comments, what does kindness mean to you in the moments when it matters most?